Rachel stared at the untouched dinner plate in front of her, the candles flickering in quiet defiance. The steak was cold. She glanced at the clock again, 9:12 p.m. Daniel wasn't coming. Another anniversary missed, buried under work calls and coding sprints. She blew out the candles before they became an embarrassment and packed the food into containers. The silence of the kitchen louder than any argument. Asterisk when she climbed into bed, Daniel's text pinged. Sorry, babe. Emergency deployment. Let's celebrate this weekend. She typed, sure, no worries, and pressed send. Her fingers hovered for a second longer than necessary. Then she locked the screen and turned away from the pillow that still smelled. Like him. Asterisk the next morning. Her alarm buzzed to the rhythm of Sophie's footsteps running into the room. Mommy, you forgot I have dress rehearsal today. Rachel's stomach dropped. She had. She rushed to get Sophie ready, pulled her own clothes on halfway out the door, and reached work 10 minutes late, flustered and on edge. Asterisk Liam was in the break room, stirring coffee. He noticed her before she noticed him. You look like someone who survived a small hurricane, he joked. Rachel gave a breathy laugh. Kindergarten rehearsal. The real battlefield. He smirked, and something in her chest shifted slightly. Almost unnoticeably. Asterisk over the next few days, she found herself smiling at Liam more than necessary. It wasn't intentional, at least that's what she told herself. He was new, friendly, and quick-witted. Everyone liked him. But it was the way he looked at her, like she was interesting, like she existed. Not as Sophie's mom or Daniel's wife, but as Rachel. Asterisk it started small. A compliment on her presentation. A shared coffee run, an inside joke about their micromanaging supervisor. Nothing serious, just pleasant. She told Maya about it over brunch. There's this guy at work. He's harmless, flirty. You know, work banter. Maya raised an eyebrow. Harmless has a way of growing teeth, Ratch. Be careful. Rachel waved it off. Please, I'm married, not dead. I'm allowed to flirt a little. Asterisk back at the office, Liam began to linger a little longer at her desk. He'd lean in closer than necessary to point something out on her screen, or brush past her shoulder lightly in the hallway. She didn't move away. Once, he told her, you have this way of making spreadsheets look good. Didn't think that was possible. Her cheeks flushed, and for a split second, she enjoyed it. Asterisk Daniel had started sleeping with his laptop on the knitstand. They barely spoke beyond logistics, groceries, parent-teacher meetings, his looming project deadlines. He was stressed. She understood. But understanding didn't fill the void that was slowly forming between them. It didn't stop her from feeling like a ghost in her own marriage. Asterisk one evening, she worked late with Liam on a client proposal. The office was mostly empty, lights dimmed, voices low. She handed him a printed brief, and their fingers touched for a moment longer than necessary. He didn't move, neither did she. A second passed. Then she pulled back, clearing her throat. Well, looks like we're done. He nodded but said nothing. His eyes, however, stayed fixed on her face longer than appropriate. Asterisk that night, Daniel came home with takeout and guilt. I thought we could eat together, make up for yesterday. She smiled weakly. They ate in silence, watching Sophie color at the table. When Daniel reached for her hand, she didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze back either. Asterisk the next week, Rachel got a text from Liam. You survived the Monday meeting? Barely made it myself. She replied instantly, barely alive. My soul left during slide 12. He sent a laughing emoji. Then another message. Drinks after work this Friday? A few of us are going. She paused, then typed, sure, sounds fun. Asterisk Friday came fast. She dressed carefully, maybe too carefully. The bar was noisy, packed with coworkers, harmless banter and harmless drinks, but it didn't feel harmless anymore. Liam kept close to her all night, his hand grazing the small of her back once when she moved through the crowd. Rachel laughed. Too loud at his jokes. Checked her phone too often for a text from Daniel that never came. When she got home that night, Daniel was asleep on the couch with Sophie curled against him. The sight made her chest ache, guilt creeping in. Slow and sticky. She stood there for a long time, watching them breathe in sync. It felt like a painting of a life she couldn't quite reach anymore. She walked to the bedroom, undressed in the dark, and crawled under the covers alone. Liam hadn't kissed her. He hadn't even tried. But something inside her had already shifted. A line had been crossed, not with hands or lips, but with intention. And intentions, she now realized, had a gravity all their own. Rachel deleted the messages before she even finished reading them again. Her fingers moved fast, too practiced now. The chats with Liam had taken on a different shape. No longer playful. They were personal, risky, loaded. Last night, he'd texted her after midnight. "If you weren't married, what do you think we'd be?" She had stared at it for 15 minutes before typing back, "Probably in trouble." He'd responded. Instantly, "Worth it." She knew it was wrong. But it felt like the only place she still existed. At home, Daniel was more present physically, but emotionally gone. Even their fights had stopped. He asked fewer questions, assumed she'd be late, didn't press for explanations. That quiet indifference was somehow worse than anger. She began living between text alerts and lies. "Client emergency," she'd say. "Late presentation, networking drinks." Daniel never pushed. The first time it happened, she told herself it would be the only time. It wasn't planned. They'd stayed late again, working, talking, drinking the cheap office wine left over from some celebration. One moment they were joking about bad advertising pitches. The next his hand was in her hair, and her lips were on his. There was no discussion, no pause. She didn't stop, didn't want to. The moment didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like breathing after holding it in too long. Afterward, she sat in her car for nearly 30 minutes, staring into nothing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "All good?" "Should I wait up?" She lied again. Exhausted. "Heading to bed. Love you." From then on, the affair unfolded like a script already written. Hotel rooms during long lunch breaks. Morning. Meetings extended into afternoon disappearances. She wore guilt like perfume strong at first, then fainter with each day. Until it barely registered. She knew how to hide it. A separate email. A burner chat app. Deleted call logs. It was frightening how easily the deception fit into her routine. She even started keeping a second outfit in her car. Just in case. The thrill was addictive. She felt wanted again, seen, desired. Liam made her laugh, made her feel like a woman, not just a mother or a wife or a household manager, but every high has a shadow. Sophie asked one night, "Why don't you tuck me in anymore?" Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm just working a lot, honey. It'll calm down soon." Sophie just nodded, unconvinced. Maya noticed too. She had called out of the blue. "I saw you today. Outside that hotel on Langdon Street. You weren't alone." Rachel froze. Maya's voice wasn't angry. Just disappointed. "Is this really who you are now?" Rachel didn't answer. She hung up. Blocked the number for the night. It was easier than listening. She told Liam what happened. He shrugged. "So what? Your life isn't her business." But it was. And deep down Rachel knew it. That night, she sat on the floor of her bathroom, shaking, crying into a towel. Not out of regret, but confusion. Who had she become? Daniel had started trying, ironically. He scheduled a surprise dinner. Took a day off to help Sophie with her science project. He even apologized one night, out of nowhere. "I know I've been absent. I'm trying to be better. It should have meant something. But it felt too late. She began pulling away from Liam, but he noticed. You're acting like we're some mistake. She didn't answer. He pressed. You wanted this too. Don't rewrite the story now. He was right. But she was tired. Of hiding. Of the thrill that now felt like poison. One afternoon, she saw Daniel standing at the sink, washing dishes while Sophie told a story beside him. The image hit her hard. There he was, doing the mundane, showing up quietly. She remembered the version of herself who had once loved him without complication. That version felt like a stranger now. Still, she met Liam again. She wanted to end it face to face. But when she tried to explain, he cut her off. You're bored, Rachel. That's all this was. Don't turn it into something noble now. The words stung. Mostly because they felt true. That night, Daniel kissed her goodnight, slow and unfamiliar, like they were meeting again for the first time. She didn't kiss back. Couldn't. She lay awake for hours, guilt finally louder than pleasure, shame stronger than secrecy. She thought of Sophie, of what would happen if everything came out, of how little control she had anymore over the mess she created. The game was over, but she hadn't won anything. Only lost parts of herself she wasn't sure she'd ever get back. Daniel's voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any scream. How long has this been going on? Rachel stood frozen in the hallway, her phone still in her hand. The backup app had restored everything. Every deleted message, every timestamp, every emoji. He had read them all. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. He didn't wait for a response. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. Then he walked out, taking Sophie with him. She stood in the empty house, listening to silence that now felt earned. There were no excuses left. No way to justify the messages, the meetings, the lies. She had crossed a line and kept walking. She hadn't tripped into this. She had chosen it again and again. And now everything that mattered was gone in one afternoon. She tried calling. No answer, texted, nothing. The hours stretched. When night came, she sat at the kitchen table staring at the imprint of Sophie's cereal bowl, still damp. The weight of what she'd done sat on her chest like something physical. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about destruction. She had wrecked her own life, and there was no one else to blame. Liam messaged that night. Everything okay? She stared at the screen, her stomach turning. For the first time, she saw him clearly separate from the fantasy. He was never going to be anything real, just an escape. A mirror reflecting what she thought she wanted to feel. She didn't reply. The next morning, she woke to an empty bed and a hollow house. No footsteps, no cartoons playing in the background, no little voice asking for juice. She called Maya. This time, she didn't hang up. Maya answered with nothing. But a pause. Then, is it over? Rachel whispered. Yes. Another pause. Start fixing it. Not for Daniel. For you. Daniel came back the next day for clothes. He didn't look at her. Sophie waited in the car. Rachel tried to speak, but her voice cracked before a word came out. He walked into the bedroom, packed 2 bags, and left. Not a single question. That silence was worse than rage. She started therapy 2 days later. She didn't go to work. Didn't text Liam. Deleted the app. Her boss called about her absence, and she said she needed time. That was the only truth she could offer anyone. Daniel responded to one message a week later. We're safe. Don't call unless it's about Sophie. That was it. She stared at the words, wondering how something as fragile as love could become so final. She wrote a letter, not to win him back, just to say everything she couldn't before. She told the truth, not just about the affair, but about the loneliness, the resentment, the exhaustion, and the emptiness she never voiced. She didn't expect forgiveness. She didn't deserve it. Weeks passed. Rachel found moments of routine again. Therapy helped her confront parts of herself she had ignored, her need to feel wanted, the lies she told to avoid discomfort, the passive way she let her marriage rot without trying to fix it. The affair wasn't the beginning. It was the symptom of everything she had left unspoken for too long. One Sunday afternoon, she passed by the park and saw Daniel pushing Sophie. On a swing, she stopped at a distance. Sophie saw her and waved. Rachel smiled, lifted her hand, but didn't move closer. She wasn't ready. And maybe he wasn't either. Later that night, Daniel sent a message. "Sophie misses you. Maybe we can talk." Ground rules. A public place. It wasn't warmth, but it wasn't ice either. It was a door not open, but not locked. They met. At a coffee shop. The conversation was awkward. He spoke plainly. "I'm not saying I'll forgive you. I just don't want Sophie growing up watching two people avoid each other." She nodded. "I understand." She didn't plead. She didn't ask for anything. That was the first real change she made, accepting the consequences without trying to manipulate the outcome. They began co-parenting slowly. Drop-offs, shared events. Sophie adjusted, but not without questions. "Why don't we live together anymore?" Rachel answered carefully. "Sometimes adults hurt each other's feelings, and we need space to heal. But we both love you. That will never change." Sophie nodded, accepting more than most adults could. Rachel never saw Liam again. She never looked for him. He had been the spark that exposed everything broken. But he wasn't the problem. She was. And facing that truth became the start of something painful, but real. Months later, Daniel asked if she'd consider counseling together. Not reconciliation. Just understanding. "I don't hate you," he said quietly. "But I don't know who you are anymore." She answered, "Neither do I, but I want to find out." The process was slow. Trust didn't rebuild. It restarted entirely. They weren't a couple. They were two people trying to parent without bitterness, trying to speak without defense. Some days they failed. Others, they sat through sessions and said the hard things. Rachel didn't know what would happen. If the marriage would survive. If love could be reborn from the wreckage. But she was finally honest. Not perfect, not healed, but accountable. She looked out the window one evening, watching Sophie chase fireflies in the yard. Daniel sitting on the steps, silent but present. And she thought, "I thought it was just a game. But the rules were real. And I broke them all. And now this is the cost." Rachel stood in front of her bathroom mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't unfamiliar, just empty. She was living. But not connected to anything. The house was quiet most days. Sophie spent alternating weeks with Daniel, and in the silence that remained, Rachel had to face herself without distraction. No excuses, no masks. Every room echoed with things she had ignored, unanswered questions, broken promises, the weight of decisions made in moments of weakness. She got up early now. Not for anyone else, just because sleep had become light and scattered. She ran, every morning before the city woke up. It hurt at first, lungs burning, legs stiff, but eventually, she came to depend on it. It became her penance. Step after step, mile after mile. A way to move forward, even if direction still felt uncertain. She didn't speak much to anyone outside of Daniel, Sophie, and her therapist. Maya reached out again once. A short message. "Still here. When you're ready." Rachel waited 2 weeks to reply. "I was selfish. I'm sorry." Maya called her the same evening. There was silence at first. Then Maya said, "You hurt people, but you also got hurt. That's not an excuse, but it's part of the story." Rachel started journaling. Her therapist called it reflective practice. She called it survival. She wrote about the first time she and Daniel danced barefoot in their college apartment. About the night they found out they were pregnant. About the years that followed, where love turned into logistics and touches became reminders instead of warmth. She wrote about the affair without glamorizing it. She recorded how she justified it in the moment, how she ignored the guilt by clinging to validation. Each page stripped away a layer of denial. Daniel was cautious but consistent. They didn't talk about the affair anymore unless it came up in therapy. When it did, Rachel didn't defend herself. She acknowledged it, owned it, and didn't ask for a response. That silence was sometimes the most powerful answer. Sophie adapted quicker than either of them. Kids do, but Rachel noticed how she watched her closely, especially during transitions. She was measuring stability, looking for patterns. One evening, Sophie asked, "Do people stop loving each other forever?" Rachel paused before answering. Sometimes love changes. But if it's real, part of it always stays. Just in a different way. Sophie didn't ask anything else. But she hugged her a little longer that night. Rachel volunteered at Sophie's school. She didn't miss another recital, parent-teacher meeting, or pickup. Not because she wanted to prove anything, but because showing up was the one thing she had complete control over now. Presence became her way of rebuilding. She stopped wearing her wedding ring. Not because Daniel asked her to, but because clinging to symbols without meaning felt dishonest. The ring sat in a drawer next to old love letters and hospital bracelets. Memories she didn't want to destroy, but couldn't carry forward. On her birthday, Daniel dropped Sophie off with a small envelope. "From her," he said. Inside was a drawing Rachel, Sophie, and Daniel holding hands under a crooked sun. Written in Sophie's handwriting, "You're still my favorite." Rachel cried for the first time in weeks. Daniel waited at the door, unsure if he should say more. Then quietly, "I don't know where we go from here, but I don't hate you." She looked at him and nodded. "I know, that's more than I deserve," he shrugged. "It's not about what you deserve. It's about what we can live with."